This is the nature of everything. Don't stay stuck.
So, Clint, I thought we were done with the perfection talk. I really did. I thought we killed it, we buried it, and moved on. But it's kind of been sitting with me since the last podcast, just thinking about, it's like we left some dishes in the sink or something, and it won't leave me alone. And I think that's sort of a sign that maybe, we're not done with it.
Honestly, I feel the same way. Although it felt like a polished conversation about not being polished, though. And
It
so
was perfectly imperfect, imperfectly perfect.
exactly. But I mean, it's like we spent this time like dismantling like the mechanism of perfectionism, as it were. But we didn't give anybody like a new mechanism by which to move forward with. And so I think if we're going to say perfection is dangerous in its own way, but if we don't establish sort of the new standard of what it should be, then we're just kind of like floating around. We're just a boat in the water without direction as well. So I don't know that that's overly helpful.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we ended with is
Hmm.
you and I having a conversation, ultimately saying like perfection isn't the end goal, but nor is imperfection the goal. And
Sure.
so we were like, well, what's the sweet spot? It's like there's nothing wrong with wanting to do a good job, right? And
Right. Right.
there's also nothing wrong with screwing it up. That's kind of our coin philosophy, right? Do it,
Sure.
just do it.
Right.
Nike, thank you, send the check. But but ultimately, that was where we were left with the question. It's like, okay, if we're not trying to be perfect, and we don't want to necessarily be imperfect,
Right.
then what are we doing? And I think we talked about it, and the word aim is where we landed.
Sure, because to your point, I mean, there is something between just accepting imperfection as a standard to say, well, if it can't be perfect and I'm settling for all of the full extent of imperfection so that I don't have to have a standard because I know perfection is the wrong standard because it's always going to let you down. That doesn't mean, to your point, we want to aim at the lower end of that spectrum. I think that is also subjective where you choose to place that aim, but it even gives you the positivity of being productive if you're aiming for something.
This might end up being our most convoluted podcast ever because it's just kind of a deep question. Because if you have a goal in mind, and you want to aim to hit your goal, right? That would be perfect. It'd be perfect if you hit your goal. But you can
Right.
get really far and do a whole lot when you practice authentically moving in the right direction. Not that imperfection, don't shame yourself. That's absolutely true. But you don't quit either. You keep trying and you keep fine tuning until you actually do reach that goal. Like a lot of times that's what happens is that, we set these vague goals like,
Mm.
I want to feel better. Well, like we're giving ourselves the out because that's just a moving target. And so we can be like, oh, well, like we don't even have to know if we hit the mark because we give
Hmm.
ourselves these vague goals and then we look for some kind of balance between perfection and imperfection. But again, it's not about perfect or imperfect. It's about striking the target. And I feel like if we're too vague, we're just never going to have the opportunity to hit the mark or to screw up and not hit the mark and try again and get closer because there actually is a target.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ambiguity of that to be vague is to give yourself the out, right? As long as you can keep it vague, then you didn't really miss the mark. I mean, it's the if you shoot inside of a barn and you hit something solid because there's four walls and a roof and the earth underneath you, if that's your vague aim, well then there's no way to fail. If somehow you don't hit something, good luck. So again, I think that's the other part of I don't want this to be misconstrued to think that you accept imperfection as, the lowest common denominator standard to where you don't hold yourself accountable. I do agree that this is going to be quite the subject because all of the nuances and rabbit holes that you can go down with this particular subject. It's yeah, I mean maybe my aim to make this subject real clear and and concise That's good. You're gonna see a lot of imperfection in what's about to be said, most likely.
Yeah, this is the episode that proves its own point because it's confusing. It's like if you're not specific, well, I want to work on my money. Okay. Nobody's ever done any good with that, right? Like I'm
Right.
going to argue that point at least because it's like, you can go to the convenience store and, buy a pack of gum and you're working on your money. I mean, you're working on getting rid of it, but if you do set an actual goal, like, I want to, save this amount of money, then that's an actual tangible target to go for versus
Well, I
I
mean,
want
I
to
think
work on my money.
that's exactly why to be specific is probably one of the more important factors to the confirmation piece of that. If you are being specific and you are confirming exactly what you're looking at and you're being reasonable, then you get to be practical. If you can look at yourself, your authentic self, and really check that out and say, what's the mark? Literally, what's the mark? And if you can truly put specifics to it, then I think that you can start to tackle that. And it can be something that allows you to hit the mark correctly.
Yeah, and in the coin framework, that is the first step to confirm it, to define it. Like, you can't really take ownership or map out your be intentional phase if you haven't confirmed it,
Mhm.
aka defined it.
Yeah, because if you don't name it, how do you know what you're aiming at? If you haven't given it a form, a shape, a name, an idea, if you haven't given context to what you're aiming at, there's no way, man. There's no way to hit it.
All right, so here's my question. Like, it's all agreeable that yes, you need to define your target in order to hit it. Why in real life does that seem so difficult?
Think that's a fantastic question, and I think it still comes back to the discomfort that's associated with actually digging into that truth and that being that candid with yourself, and especially if you're the kind that's going to be candid with others and work this in community. Like, you've got to get past that discomfort and realize that it is uncomfortable to know yourself that closely, and then to figure out if you've got criticisms of where your gaps are. For me, I think the problem still lies in discomfort. I mean, that's the hesitancy that creates problems for me consistently.
Discomfort for me might look like fear of missing the mark, in which case, I think a lot of times if we're afraid of missing the mark or being imperfect or whatever, but like to try is, a pretty good effort, right? We have to try, and that expels energy, and we don't want to waste that. Biologically, we want to conserve energy. And so all of a sudden we get a scapegoat to say, like, well, it's probably not going to be perfect. So what's even the point?
But I think we have to look at
The
what is the
gravity?
aim. Yeah, the gravity of the situation. And I think that has to be put in context. It's super broad and it's super personal. Like, again, within the book, this even relates back to the three P's of, is this personal? Or sure, whatever aim that you're wanting to take because there is something that you want to improve or change, adjust, or get unstuck from, it's personal to you. Great. Is it present? Is it something that's weighing on you? Is it something? Okay, yes. Then is it pressing? To what degree do you need this adjusted now? For me personally, I'm not good at basketball, and I never will be. There is nothing present or pressing about basketball for me. Like, it's fine. I would shoot hoops with somebody. I'm just not going to shoot them well. And that's not where I'm going to aim anything of my expenditure of time. We also recognize that there are certain things that the vast majority of us do. The vast majority of the people that we are most likely communicating with have jobs that they go to, they have families that they spend time with, obligations. They're chosen obligations, but if we want to adjust those, we also have to be specific about those. You don't just go throwing away a job that is handling the responsibilities that you have decided to take on. So again, I don't want it to sound like,
I know how I want it to sound now.
okay,
I don't want you to be like, a bow and arrow at a target. I want this to be like the game of golf. You
mm,
have a target, but like it's going to take some swings. You're going to have to map it out and go like, okay, I need to curve around here a little bit. Need to, you got to choose your clubs. I mean, maybe golf is the metaphor here.
Well, and to that point, and not even a professional golfer, right? Just like the
No, God,
weekend
no.
hackers. We're all
Yes.
weekend hackers at golf, and that has to be okay. The you are absolutely right, because the vast majority of us, we know that we suck at golf. It doesn't change the fact that we have wildly ambitious aim when we go out on the course, and we consistently miss the mark and miss the target, and it doesn't break us.
What they don't
You
know
know
is
that
how
you
little
suck
I
at
care
golf.
about golf, but it is the right idea. I don't even want it to
That's
be the
true.
right idea, but it's a pretty good idea.
The fact that you even use the golf
I know. I
analogy
don't even
cracks
know
me
what's
up.
happening.
All right, guys, we're taking a break from the golf metaphors for a moment, and just wanted to invite you to join us online, join us on socials.
At the
If you
country
haven't grabbed the
club.
book, the socials at the country club. Look, if you haven't bought the book, you really are missing out. I heard someone speaking on a topic the other day, and they were talking about if somebody buys a drill, it's not because they want to go buy a drill. They're buying a drill because they need a hole, and so that's what the drill does. And if they buy a saw, they're not buying a saw because they want a saw. They need a shorter board. Like there's a reason for what they're purchasing, and that's what we would like to offer to you guys. Like, we want you to invest in what's going to get you unstuck. We know that you don't need another book. You're not buying another book because you want something else on the shelf. However, if you are wanting a solution, then this is that tool that does it. So I invite you, go to coinyourlife.com, get the book. This is the solution that gets you unstuck.
All right. So another thing, surrounding this sort of perfection, imperfection conversation, like taking aim and reaching your goals and all these things, maybe it's also not always about the aim. Maybe it's just, the amount of practice, authentic but imperfect practice that moves us closer to the goal. Like you said earlier, I
Mm.
mean, we can't stop being responsible and paying the bills and taking care of the kids and doing the things. I think what we're uncovering is that maybe none of this is about perfect or imperfect. Again, it's about effort or no effort. It's about,
Mm.
an attempt. It's about the aim. It's about taking the shots, trying to hit the mark.
Well, but I mean, we are absolutely living in such a polarized part of history right now. Like, everything seems to be polarized. Everything is it's right or it's wrong, or it's left or it's right, or it's I mean, to your point, it's perfect or it's imperfect, as if imperfect now becomes wrong or failed. And
Right,
I think,
right.
again, I think we can overuse the idea of imperfect to just say, to be slothful and irresponsible and dangerous to yourself and unhealthy and a threat to those around you. Well, I'm just living my imperfect life because it's acceptable. I don't want that to be misconstrued here to
You
say all
can.
the all you can, but also, I mean, that, like, there are still norms that, you will, there is a penalty for those things. And so I don't want that to be misconstrued here to say we're telling you that you should go be a degenerate, because that's not the aim. Like, we are in the business of getting you unstuck to be professionally, personally better than where you are, because we know that you have goals you want to hit. We know that you are the type of person that wants to take aim at a mark to get unstuck and be better. Because of that, we're not trying to find the lowest common denominator to be a slug and say that's perfectly great. I don't want to accept that, and I'm really not here for that.
I agree. And look, if we get a letter from the Slug Society because of that shit you just said, then that's not
I hope
okay.
we do. I hope we do. No, that
The
is
Slug
perfectly okay,
Society is
Slug
going to
Society.
get their
Give me a
feelings
shout.
hurt.
Find us on coinyourlife.com, and you can send us whatever you want.
You can
We'll read
what?
it.
What you can do what slugs do, which is not send us
Yeah, if
anything.
you get around to it, if you figure out a way that you can do it, then by all means, get it in the mail. I'm in. But like I said, I just don't want it to be lost in the fact that our aim is to get better. Like, don't
Yeah, I
be
mean,
stuck.
and
Don't
the
be
hope
stagnant.
the hope is that we're going to talk to high performing people with responsibilities, people who can understand, the juggling act, understand why perfection isn't really helpful because it keeps you stuck, and how imperfection,
Mhm.
and how like embracing imperfection could keep you stuck. Both of those things will keep you stuck.
Absolutely. And so it's not about the perfect aim. It is about staying in motion and keeping your targets specific, keeping your aim practiced, continuing to hit those marks. This is just another relaying of that idea, is the fact that continuous practice to hit your marks and to take specific aim, those are continually those integral steps that get you there.
That is the key. Yes. I mean, because it's, the coin framework wants to start off by, knowing your authentic self, knowing what you actually want. And then you practice your way into, that accuracy. You continue to practice until you become accurate with your aim.
All right. So I think the real takeaway from this is to continually practice your aim, and not randomly, not ambiguously. Have the guts to pick the mark, and have the guts to pick the mark with the specifics in mind. Name that mark. Have the humility to recognize that you might not hit directly in the bullseye. That's okay. And when you recognize that you're off the mark, when you recognize that your aim is untrue for the moment, then fix it. And if you don't know where to start with that, find us at coinyourlife.com, pick up the book. There's the solution in there to get where you want to get and close the gaps, to hit your mark. Make the steps.
Get unstuck.
Before you go, just know it's time. Time to connect. Time to change the nature of everything. Find us at coinyourlife.com and don't stay stuck.